wasn't a good running back. So
He's literally only can run fast. That's his thing.
There you go. Absolutely. Bam, guys, we are live. It is the Blue Star Lunch Hour, and it is week 9 of the NFL season. It feels like it's flown by, but I guess it's kind of what happens, right? We get into this weekly cadence, and here we are. It's week 9, and it's time to get after it. We are going to preview the Cowboys against the Atlanta Falcons. And as John said, well, I'll let John say what he said a minute ago, right before we jumped on. This has a chance to be a rough game for the Cowboys. What do you think, John?
Definitely. Buy all your Bijan Robinson stock. I mean, I think just from a personnel standpoint, their team is much like the Lions were, I would say. Is just a really bad stylistic matchup for the just personnel wise, given who the Cowboys have personnel wise on the interior defensive line and who the Falcons have on their interior offensive line. I mean, Chris Lindstrom has been one of the best run blocking offensive guards for the last couple of years. Bergeron, the man who was almost a Cowboy, might be in a different galaxy. He'd be the Tyler Guyton for your team right now, but he's actually playing left guard for the Falcons, and he's actually improved a lot over his rookie year. He's actually doing a lot better this year. And obviously they have Bijan Robinson, who's probably one of the 2 or 3 best running backs in the NFL right now, and that's a recipe for disaster for the Cowboys defense, as we've seen for the entire season. Unless we get, that kind of New York Giants-esque performance from like Mozzie Smith, Calvin Watkins, Osa, and Linval Joseph, I just don't see how the defense is going to really do well, because the Falcons are one of the best teams in the NFL, as well as integrating their run game with their play action pass game, and we've seen the Cowboys have a ton of issues with the play action pass. So I think if the Cowboys want to have an opportunity to win this week, it's going to be down to the offense. They're going to have to carry a lot of the weight. I think the Falcons defense can be scored on. I think if Dak Prescott is having his typical performance that he had like last year, and he's throwing it well, and the Cowboys receivers are being more detailed with their route running, they can score points on this defense. I don't think it's some super strong iron will defense or anything, but it's just hard to have any confidence given what we've seen the last few weeks from the Cowboys offense. So it's not projecting well. I'm always optimistic. I'm never one who roots for myself to be miserable. So I'm hoping the Cowboys get the W. I'm going to be holding on to that chance as much as I possibly can, but definitely on paper, it doesn't look great.
Yeah, it's this is a tough spot to be in when you follow or cover an NFL team, is when you feel like when you run out of hope, right? When you look around and you say, I put in the description for this show that their season is on the brink, right? Like they're sitting right there at the point where you're almost midway through. You basically are midway through. Week 9 is the midpoint of the season. You've already had your bye, and you came out of your bye, and the last remaining hope we almost had for this season was, well, last year they went into the bye and things looked rough, and they came out of the bye and things looked completely different. The scheme changed, what they were doing on offense and defense changed, and it got a lot better. And that hasn't been the case this year. They came out against San Francisco, and I think you retweeted, I think Seth Walder tweeted it, and they had like the lowest motion rate at the snap on their season this year, which is just that's rough. That's really, really tough for that to be the case coming out of the bye week, after we expected them to make some changes and to improve things, and it really looked like more of the same, where it seemed like, and John, this is something that watching the tape from this week's game, and we didn't do our tape review this week, but watching the offensive tape, it sure as heck seemed like almost nothing happens on time in this offense right now. And I think that's why it feels so rough right now on offense. Is that there's,
and I know you focused a lot on like the receivers and the passing game and like the run schemes and stuff, but I feel like the Cowboys offensive line has to lead the league in tripping over each other's feet, stepping on each other's feet. It happens, I feel like, once every 2 or 3 plays, someone's tripping over the other. And that just kind of goes back to what we've been talking about since we started this podcast, about how the lack of continuity, how the fact that the offensive Solari was so late to insert Guyton and BB into the offensive line didn't allow them to, create that, that continuity with the 5 best up front. And you see the negative, the negative consequences of that consistently. I think, during the season, there's only so much you can do, with practice wise and with how limited the practice schedules are. And we've seen just the Cowboys' offensive line is just, even when individual players are doing well, the whole unit has not been working well as one at all this entire season, basically.
Yeah, and it's like in the passing game, nothing's happening. You'll see it every once in a while. It'll pop up. There was I think it's 4th and 4, and they ran the slant to Turpin. And Dak takes his drop, back foot hits the ground, ball comes out, ball goes over the top of the linebacker. I think it was Warner that was underneath. Ball goes straight over the top of the linebacker. Turpin goes up, makes the catch, first down, clean, no pressure, like very well executed. Almost nothing else in the game happens on time, on schedule, 5 and a hitch, balled out, And the funny thing is, one of the plays that was almost like that was the ball that wound up being the interception to Turpin down the left sideline, where Dak takes a 5-step drop, or Dak takes his drop, takes one hitch to get out of the way of the pressure around Guyton on the left side, and has Turpin the NFL open, NFL open on a go route.
Exactly what you want versus cover one, and he did a good job redlining too. He didn't get squeezed to the sideline.
Closed, and the safety was in the middle of the field. He was not cheating to Cavante Turpin's side to cover.
Can you imagine that?
There's a lot of really bad takes about this interception. That the safety had it read from the snap that Dak was going to throw the go ball to Cavante Turpin. No. He was open. There was no safety over the top when he made the decision to throw the ball. But because of the pressure up front, he can't. He winds up throwing it off platform against the wind on a go route. That's a scary face that your face just froze in, by the way. It's pretty awesome. But he winds up throwing the go ball down the sideline against the wind. Ball floats on him, gives the safety time and an angle to get into the window that he otherwise had no shot to be in, and it winds up being a pick. And that's just so many plays like that happen, where it's like, okay, the receiver does the thing and gets open, but immediately there's immediate pressure on the quarterback. Or the receiver doesn't do the thing and get open, and the offensive line protects, and now Dak has to go from 1 to 2 to 3 because nobody's open down the field because the scheme isn't that good and they're not scheming anybody open. And there's just it feels like nothing's happening on time in this offense right now. And to me, that's really kind of the clarification that came to me this week watching this tape was that, and I don't think, there's a lot of criticism of Dak Prescott out there. He is not playing very well off script right now, out of structure. And there's not that many plays in structure right now.
Yeah.
And so you wind up with this herky-jerky offense where if they can string 3 or 4 plays together that happen in structure, they'll go poop, poop, poop right down the field really fast because he's still and has always pretty much been amazing playing in structure. But when things break down, he's not playing all that well. And now, I don't necessarily know why. maybe doesn't have the athleticism to get outside. That doesn't feel like he has the athleticism to get out of the pocket like he might would have when he was younger. It sure sounded like on the radio this week that the call is coming from inside the house for him to not run, which means to not escape, not get out of the pocket, all that kind of stuff. And that Jerry doesn't want him to run. So he doesn't want him to get out of the pocket, doesn't want him to scramble because he doesn't want him to get hurt, which, okay, nobody wants Dak Prescott to get hurt. But if you're going to handicap your offense like that, it doesn't – if it takes away a significant portion of the offense, which that was a big part of why they played so well last year. Was Dak got out of the pocket, he made massive explosive plays. We all remember the whatever it was, 96-yard touchdown or whatever it was to CeeDee Lamb against the Lions, where he breaks out of a sack, gets out of the pocket, throws the ball deep down the field, all that kind of stuff. He's not playing that well out of structure inside the pocket right now. When the pocket breaks down on him, his feet are all over the place, and he winds up. We've talked about before. I feel like he's not a great in the pocket off platform thrower because when you don't scramble, a lot of times what scrambling does, and you can talk about this from the defensive perspective, scrambling changes the angles for defenses and creates big windows most of the time. Like rarely when you scramble, unless you're throwing to the sideline, that ball every quarterback throws on the sideline on like a comeback route against the when you scramble, you wind up with bigger windows. So the fact that Dak doesn't have like one of those all-world arm strength arms when he's off platform doesn't really come into effect when he's outside the pocket because the windows get bigger, because things change, the angles change, things break down.
And I think another thing, just to add on to that, I think the receivers, besides CD, really struggle to uncover in those scramble situations. I think Ferg's pretty good at it, but Turpin's not good at it at all.
No,
Jalen Tolbert doesn't ever uncover. Rarely. He has to have the cornerback fall down or something for him to uncover. But I think that's a big part of it too, is when he's scrambling, he's not getting help and not uncovering. That was something, we all had our issues with Gallup, but he was fantastic at uncovering and scrambling.
Sure. Absolutely. Brandon Cooks is good at uncovering. I think the thing that people are not talking about right now is the fact that I think Brandon Cooks is a really big part of this offense that nobody's talking about. Because he's a guy that can uncover in structure. He's a guy who can run a dig route and get open. He can run a slant route and get open. He can run a comeback or a hitch and separate. And he can be there on time and on schedule. And when they give a ton of attention to CD, Brandon Cooks can win one-on-one against a team's second cornerback. And not having him, I think, is hurting this offense a lot more than people are talking about. And it's forcing Dak to play out off schedule and out of structure, but he's having to do it from inside the pocket where those windows stay crazy tight. And he's playing off platform without an elite arm. Like nobody here is talking about Dak Prescott having a top 3-5 arm in the league. Like he has a perfectly strong enough arm to play quarterback in the NFL, but he is not, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or, Drake May at this point, or Anthony Richardson that just got benched, or any of these guys that have these big, massive bazooka arms. That's not Dak. That's never been Dak. And that's okay. He's an extremely good quarterback without that. But that's a limiting factor when he's forced to play off schedule in the pocket and can't set his feet. Nobody's getting open, all this other kind of stuff. It creates a lot of problems for sure.
Yeah, totally agree on every point. And I really like the analogy you talked about with the fact that Dak Prescott is really good in structure, but he's struggling outside of structure. He just is not getting enough opportunities in structure throughout a game because of all the other issues the Cowboys are dealing with. And I think it kind of correlates with what Micah was dealing with to start the season, where, he's probably top 2 pass rushers in true drop back situations, but he wasn't being able to see those true dropbacks on a very consistent basis. So he wasn't able to generate the number of pressures that he had in previous years. I mean, if we look at his stats now, he currently ranks 5th among edge rushers in pass rush win rate. And if you ask Cowboys fans, they would say that Micah Parsons has had one of a terrible season before the injury. So I think it's kind of a fun correlation there that you can see that the environments that these players are being forced to play in because their surrounding cast isn't performing up to par is really putting a, I don't want to say putting a ceiling on their play, but it's definitely devaluing what they do best. It's not putting them into situations where they can be the dominant players that we've seen in the past, where Dak Prescott does finish number 2 in the MVP voting, where Micah Parsons is a 3-time, defensive player of the year contender, those type of situations. And when you don't have the surrounding cast that are able to put those players in the positions where they're at their best, you're not going to get that kind of level of contribution, that kind of impact, that kind of quality of play, unfortunately.
Yeah, to me, it just speaks to just a really tough operating environment for everybody on this football team right now. In that, I think Jalen Tolbert is being asked to do things Jalen Tolbert isn't ready to do yet. We talked about Brandon Cooks. I think, I still don't understand why in the world Brevin Spanford is on the field so much for this team. Like, we were excited about him as an undrafted free agent for the possibility that 2 or 3 years down the road, he had the chance to be somebody. But he's on the field a lot for this team. Yeah. The biggest hope this team had coming into to the game against San Francisco was that Dalvin Cook got activated for the practice squad for this game. What are we doing at this point?
We saw, me, you, the quote unquote like smart people in Cowboys blogosphere or fandom sphere, whatever you want to say, the world that we're in. But, it was easy to see that Dalvin Cook wasn't going to make the change. We saw the tape of him the last time he played. People thinking that he's, the Minnesota Vikings Dalvin Cook is just wishful thinking. He can obviously still run outside zone. Like he knows how to run it probably better than almost any running back in the NFL, but he just doesn't have the explosiveness, doesn't have the elusiveness that he used to have. So it was obvious that, inserting him into the lineup wasn't going to make really any difference at all. So it's just one of those things that fans are just grasping onto whatever potential hope that they can get, and it seems like right now the Cowboys are really peddling that we're getting guys back from injury. Deron Bland's going to be back in the next couple of weeks. Micah is going to be back in the next 2 or 3 weeks. The reinforcements are coming, so to speak. Brandon Cooks, like you said, I think his IR stint ends in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's like they're just kind of, instead of saying that we're going to go acquire these people, we're saying we're getting the reinforcements back together, and that's going to allow us to, hit the home stretch of the season playing our best football. But
it's about the most predictable storyline you could have that's right down the middle for this organization of, we feel like, we're going to get, we have Amari Cooper. That was who our first round pick was. Or, we have so-and-so who's basically a rookie this year, even if our rookie class isn't good, or, we have this or whatever. Like, yikes. That's about as predictable as it could be. But I think going into the Falcons game, I think they have a chance to score. We just spent all this time talking about how bad the Cowboys offense has been. That should tell you how bad the Falcons defense can be. Is that I think they have a chance to score. The problem is, the Falcons have a really good corner in AJ Terrell and one of the top 2 or 3 safeties probably in the NFL at this point in Jesse Bates. I should get a Toby Keith drop in here for there should have been a Cowboy. That's what I get one of those in the system where every time we talk about a player the Cowboys should have drafted, we can drop Toby Keith in here. But they have those 2 guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a whole lot else going on that defense. Grady Jarrett's older.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I honestly, that's what I think that can allow the Cowboys offense to be successful. The Falcons have 0 pass rush. Matthew Judon is the best pass rusher they got, and he's not really like a pure pass rusher. He's one of those more really good at blitzing. He can be inserted in different gaps type of thing. He's not someone who's going to line up consistently, at like right, on the right edge and just kill the left tackle constantly. He's not that kind of guy. So I think this is the opportunity that if the Cowboys are going to, give Dak good protection and allow him the time that he needs to go through his progressions and find receivers and give the receivers time to get open, those type of things. I think this is that kind of game. I think the second level of the Falcons defense as well can be exploited in the passing game. I haven't ever been really impressed with Caden Ellis or Nate Landman. I think they're kind of, run of the mill NFL linebackers. I don't think they're anything special. And I think if the Cowboys are able to, maybe they can establish a little bit of a run game so they can use some play action to create those voids in between zones. But I just think it comes down to them being able to pass protect up front and give Dak the time that he needs to find the open man against this secondary that does have holes. Like you said, just the only thing I'm worried about is we know Dak Prescott, he likes to get antsy and throw those seam balls with, in traffic, and he's one of the best at it. But Jesse Bates is one of those safeties that is one of the few safeties that would make you kind of give you pause about doing so. And I think Dak did good against the Steelers, going against kind of a similar safety and Mika Fitzpatrick, who moves around a lot more than Jesse Bates does, but he has that same kind of ball hawking ability where you don't want to leave the ball hung up in his vicinity at all because he's going to take that home with him. So that gives me some optimism. So I'm hoping for the best, even though we spent the first 20 minutes talking about why we're so pessimistic.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the first 15 minutes or so is the replacement for what we would have done, for an hour or so on Tuesday, where we watch the tape and complain about how bad this team is. But yeah, I think the crazy thing is that like there is still a world.
Oh no, the Joey internet is back. That is a pretty good still, though. It's not a bad look for old Joey right there. In that look, in my opinion, at least. But interesting. Let's talk Halloween. No, I'm just kidding. But let's see. Honestly, the thing that I'm looking forward to most about this game is the fact that it's a 10 a.m. game because means that I don't have to go to work until afterwards, so I don't have to work and watch the game and tweet at the same time. That's always fun. That's great for me. So let's give it up for me that I can actually watch the game totally without having to do other stuff, so I can be fully engaged into the Cowboys' either demise or prosperity. It'll be interesting to see which way. I think I got a message from Joey. Joey lost power. So I guess that's it for all of us, my friends. I will see y'all later.